I'm Dr. Randy Neal, and I teach people to keep moving forward. In this video, we're going to talk about weak men and mainly the recovery process that you can start if you're having those difficulties in life. And I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of men who've come in, whether it's in the outpatient or even the inpatient setting, to where they feel like they're just not happy with where they're at in life, and it's gotten to the point to where they don't know what to do. And a lot of the times it's in the form of a relationship and the struggles in that area where they initially come in to say, look, I really need some help. Now, where my focus of this video, it's going to be a three-part series, and this is the first part. This is almost like the foundation, almost the bare bones, what you must do to get started in that recovery process. Is that I'm not going to focus so much on where it comes from. I'll focus more on the steps that you can actually implement and start to get that recovery. Because I think there's a lot of videos out there that if you type in weak man and where it comes from, some people feel it's genetic and so on. There's a predisposition, kind of an evolutionary thing, but it's mostly learned. And when people grow up in a household where the child isn't validated, it's not nurtured, they tend to learn to be someone they learn who they have to be to please their parent, to get that attention, and then they translate that from childhood into the adult relationships. So they become this people pleaser, and eventually, they might get away with it initially for some years. But when it comes to relationships, if you're always the giver and it's not a partnership, then eventually it does catch up to you, and that's when they usually wind up reaching out to me and saying, "Look, I need some help in this area." So there's 5 main steps that I think we can start that road to recovery. But before we even get that, I'd say before you even start those steps, you need to honestly tell yourself is that you're responsible for where you're at in life. Don't go pointing fingers at anybody else. You have to really own where you're at, because it's at the beginning of starting some transformation, if you want to call it that it's that point to where your success or failure is really determined. So don't go pointing fingers at other people. Really say that you own where you're at, and your recovery is also, it's kind of on your shoulders. So the first thing that I would say is you have to learn how to communicate. And when I say communicate, you need to learn how to say the word no. And when I start working with people, I always just tell them, let's just practice saying no. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I'm going to ask you to do something for me, and I want you to learn to say no to me, because you need to learn how to say no to other people, to tell them really what you want. And when you make a decision to do something, you need to stand back and ask yourself, am I doing this for myself, or am I doing this to please somebody else? But it all starts with being able to actually say no to people when they ask you stuff. The second step is you got to find out what you want. You got to go after what your passion is. I mean, perhaps in your life, and I've even had the struggles myself, is you start out doing things for other people. You might have chosen a career, you might have even chosen a partner who you felt others may have approved of, or that career may have been something that was thought highly of other people. But you got to get to the point of saying, what do you want? Find your passion. Because that's what will attract people to you. People want to be around someone who knows what they want, who's driven by something different. And when you're a people pleaser or a weak man per se, you're so worried that you're gonna disappoint others, that you've probably made decisions all your life that were more for others and not yourself. So I'm going to say the second step is you got to find out what your passion is. And if you need to learn how to meditate to do that, if you need to take some time to yourself, you got to do it. That's a whole nother video per se, but you got to find out what drives you, what motivates you. Because when you're around someone who's really driven and passionate, it makes a difference, and it's gonna bring people towards you. I'm a firm believer that we come into this world at a certain point, and then we're heading in that direction that we're meant to be, we're meant to go. And as long as you stay on that path, life is it's a lot easier, it's smoother. But when we're off track, because again, perhaps you've learned from that childhood experience that you need to be that people pleaser. When we go away from who you're meant to be, that's when that struggle comes. And part of when I work with people is to point out, enjoy the struggle, because it's really meant to put you back on that path that you're meant to do. The third step is I want you to connect with others. More specifically, I want you to be around other men mostly. You can pick a hobby, you can start to volunteer, but the key to this is to try to be around more men to model your behaviors after. And these aren't men who are trying just to find women or to date more. It's actually guys who know what they want in life. Guys who are successful, guys who are driven. Because there's nothing more attractive, even to women, is a man who knows what they want, and a guy who's like, this is what I'm doing. You're more than welcome to come and share this experience with me. But it's men like that, men who actually are passionate for what they do and really know what they want in life. And so just by connecting with others, whether it's in a volunteer experience or perhaps you want to take up a hobby, perhaps you want to learn, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, who knows, but it's a matter of just getting out there, connecting with others, and preferably connect with other men. Usually when I tell someone who's in this kind of weak man syndrome is when you find a therapist or when you go to therapy is, I know you're going to want a female therapist because you want to try to get that connection with a woman, but it's more important that you find a therapist that's actually a guy, because you need that male interaction. You need that big brother you never had. You need that father figure to kind of tell you what, this is how it's done. So connect with others and preferably connect with strong men. The fourth step in this is you got to have a plan when things don't go right. And what I mean by that is, it's very easy when you're on an emotional high, you're having a good day, but there's going to be those times when either you're alone, perhaps you're trying to seek a relationship that's not working, perhaps she's not calling you back or texting you back and all that stuff. But have a plan when things go bad, so you don't go in there sulking. It's more of whether you learn meditation, whether you can take your mindset into, hey, thanks to I appreciate the tough times. Or if it's even just finding YouTube videos that are more inspirational and motivating to you. But you got to have a plan, because those bad days will come. Part of the recovery process can be 50-50. Most of the time you're doing really well, but then a lot of times when you are alone, because I know that's a struggle that most weak men have, is you got to have a plan in place of how you're going to react to that, and that you don't just do things impulsively and perhaps even reach out to your ex or reach out to other people looking for their approval, looking for that dopamine hit by contacting others, hoping that they respond and looking for someone else to pick you up. Because part of this recovery is learning strategies of how you can actually help yourself. And that's really, this first initial, this whole part one of this is learning the basics. And it's more about, finding that happiness piece within, as opposed to always trying to find it from an external source. The fifth step, and the last step in this first part, is be original. Now, I can't stress this enough, is that, when you come into this world, you're moving toward a higher purpose. We don't choose our parents. Sometimes we get thrown off course from our childhood struggles. But embrace the struggle. Be thankful for it. And every time there's a struggle that occurs, say, hey, thank you. I appreciate. I know that this is actually meant to guide me in a different direction. But this fifth step is to be the original you. Again, nobody likes a copycat. But when you're around somebody who actually is really kind of locked in of who they are in this world, there's nothing more attractive, and that you'll find that you'll obtain more more relationships with women. The men will even kind of gravitate towards you, because there's just something different about someone who's really kind of locked in on who they are, and they know it with confidence. So everybody loves a good story. Everybody loves a success. It's not about telling people, oh, guess what I'm doing? I'm making all these changes and it's only a matter of time. It's a quiet confidence that someone has who's going through this change. But if you start implementing really these 5 initial steps, you'll start to see a difference, and life becomes a lot easier. And you start having those greater moments of happiness, and they start coming a little more frequent, and they start lasting a little bit longer. So I hope you like this video. Kind of review all 5 of these steps. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box. But again, this is the same stuff that we talk to people all the time when they come in, whether it's in the outpatient or even the inpatient setting, that if you start making these changes, you're one step closer to finding that true happiness. Alright guys, so here's the part of the video where I have my own personal experience with these. Learning to say no is a key step. It really sets boundaries with other people. I for the most part early on was very much a person wanting to please others, for lack of better words. And so I got into a profession, got into a relationship that wasn't the best for me, but it's like you don't want to hurt people's feelings, and because you're more about their feelings more than yours. So you gotta learn how to say no. And even in today's even in what I do today, I make sure that there's a little bit of unpredictability with me, meaning I'm going to push back on certain topics to people, and it's mainly about setting boundaries. Is to let them know that I'm going to stick up for myself. And for me, it's just practice on a daily basis. Is to have those good boundaries with people. Having the purpose. You got to find out what you're meant to do. I can't stress that enough. I mean, I was just kind of drifting in the wind, even though in the back of my mind I said I knew I'm made for something greater, but I was surrounding myself with people who were more worried about them, and I was more worried about them than myself. So you got to put yourself first and find out what you're meant to do. Find out that passion. And for me, it was getting into this mental health. Part of it is helping people. All of it is helping people when you do this. But it's something that it was an interest of mine, and it's always been an interest of mine. And so I pursued that. You got to have that connectedness with people. Myself, I took like martial arts. I took guitar lessons. I even took voice lessons. But the point is, you got to get out there and connect with people. Do something different. Do something that's going to get you out there and associate with different types of people. And then you can choose to surround yourself with people that actually have your best interest. I say you have your best interest in mind, but people who that it's not all about them. And that's kind of the key thing, and that goes with who you work with all the way to your relationships. And then having that go-to, having that when things go bad, because they will. I mean, even I have bad, not bad days, but times when your mind just kind of drifts into like, oh man, it's gonna be a rough day or whatnot. Is what I used is I had a whole set of YouTube video go-tos that were more motivational, and there's tons of them out there, but it's something just to kind of pick you up, change that state. I needed something that was going to change that feeling state of like, oh, woe is me, when times are tough. But it's getting out there and having that go-to that can change how you feel, and raise that vibration, raise that energy. And so I'd use YouTube videos and stuff like that. So again, don't believe that you're fated. That's the biggest mistake people can do is they believe they're fated. Oh, this is just who I am. This is my destiny. You gotta lose that storyline and kind of take control back of your life. And if you're one of these weak men, as I was, these are the basic initial steps that you can do to get your life back. To find that little piece of happiness. So if you like this video, have any comments, please put them below. This is like the first video of a series for this Weak Men, and I think it's something very dear to me, and I do want to help the next guy in line.